Okay, good morning, everyone. Our next webinar CPD talk is on becoming a change maker and an influencer by Stephanie Jaeger, PMP, LINC, BBA Healthcare Management, Program Manager and Process Specialist at Synergetic Energy Partners Co-Limited. Again, I will give you a full description of Stephanie shortly. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for being here, everybody. So a quick agenda, we'll do a quick housekeeping as we do. I will have a quick introduction of 10 minutes. After that, we'll have a survey as we want to engage as maximum as we can. There'll be presentation part 1. We'll have a quick discussion, question answer coming in. Then there'll be part 2. Again, we will see how we'll obviously work with Stephanie on that. And then we'll have a survey and then finally Q&A and conclude. In terms of, again, if you're on PC, I think I've already gone through that. Top of the screen, you have the view option on PC. On the bottom left-hand side of your screen, there's an audio screen, so you can adjust your audio setting. If you want to, obviously, if I'm going to ask you to say hi, just like now, if you can just raise the hand just to validate my comments. Thank you very much indeed. There's a Q&A tab as well, where you can put your questions. Already, some of you have already leave it. And if you want to leave the meeting for personal reason, not because you're bored of the presentation, then leave meeting is on the right-hand side. Poll again, there'll be some polls going up as well. So, thank you to everyone. And Stephanie, we will issue you with a certificate attendance. Please email me after you leave the CPD, please. At least then I can get your CPD today and tomorrow as well. So who I am then, my name is Anil Singh Rana. Some of you may know me and some of you are just knowing me today. Love construction, love learning, love sharing, love people. 18 years in construction now, and I'm extremely passionate about giving back. I love giving back, and just like Davison and Stephanie Jaeger, who's here, giving the time and your time as well for you to be here as well. So I want to start with this, really to get you thinking. Get you thinking of what is your understanding of a change maker and an influencer. So I'm going to share the screen with you right now, as we've got 100 of you today with us now. And let me just share this with you. And already some of you have already commented. So if you see my screen, what is your understanding of a change maker and influencer? So all you need to do is go to menti.com and type in 50898. Right? So type in on your phone or on your laptop, right? Menti.com and put the password in 50898, and then you will see there as we go through. So already some of you are saying leader, infinite thinker. Stephanie, maybe we can make a note of that as well as we launch the webinar. People are saying creative, making an impact, passionate, adapt to changes, controller, controller, researchers, grace, revolution, trailblazer, okay, creator, future, leader versus boss. Wow, that's a strong one. So yeah, there's lots of, what is your understanding of a change maker and an influencer? Lots of leader coming up as well. Persuader, brand. Making a difference. Already 23 of you have already commented on it. So I'll give you some few more minutes just to really know what your thoughts are on that. And it's about adapt to changes. We've got making others the same. Okay. Team player. And we've got educators. We've got making a difference. That's a good point. Making a difference. Already 25 of you, so whoever joining now, go to menti.com and then just use the menti.com and then type in 50898. You should be okay there. Okay. So we're gonna stop now, but already we've got some good indication. Some of you are saying pathfinder, positive thinker, optimistic, making an impact. So 33 of you have now voted, so you're getting in the hang of it. So thank you. We will get back to Menti shortly, but at least we know what you're looking at, and for Stephanie to really get some guidance before we proceed. Okay, so all right, so we've got Sauda, whose microphone is muted. I think it's on your side, Sauda. Maybe do check. So all right, thank you very much. I'm just gonna swap to the presentation now. Thank you, everybody, for your comment. Hugely appreciated, of course. Okay, so that's going live. A lot of people are putting in now, so we will move to the next question shortly on that. So, right, let me just go back to the slide. Okay, and just bear with this as well. Okay, fantastic. So if you can see my screen again, please put your hands up just to make sure we validate the presentation. Thank you. I can see all of you putting the comment now. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So I want to just really, before introducing Stephanie, on two quotes as well. And one of the quotes that Steve Jobs goes on to say that the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the one who do. Very, very powerful quote from Steve Jobs there. The next one is from Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon. One of the huge mistakes people make is that they try to force an interest on themselves. You don't choose your passion chooses you. And I think that's something very important as well. And then finally, we are here today, and Mark Zuckerberg said to us that give everyone the power to share anything with anyone. I'm going to say that again. Give everyone the power to share anything with anyone. And this is what we're here today. And I'm hoping that, again, Stephanie can expand on that. So before we introduce Stephanie, I want to play a nice video for you before we really get into the webinar. So here we go. Again, if you can hear the video, and if you can see the video, please put your hands up as well. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so I think that's a nice video which I wanted to share before I introduce Stephanie here. Thank you. And I'm going to start with the first poll survey on Zoom. Do you think you're a change maker or an influencer? So I'm going to share that with you now. The first question now on the poll, and I'm sure if you're struggling to see, let us know. And I'm just going to launch the poll now. So here we go. So the question is do you think you're a change maker or an influencer or none? So again, please let us know what your thoughts are as we move to the presentation. Okay, so again, take your time. We've got about 40 seconds left. Do you think you're a change maker or an influencer or none? Again, if you don't know, it's none. If you know that you're making impact in the world or you're influencing your colleague around the world, then you're an influencer, change maker. But again, these will be all explained in detail by our guest today. So do you think you're a change maker or influencer? You've got about 15 seconds. 77% of you have already voted. So please put your comments in as we go through the presentation. So already 78, 79% of you have voted. And I'm just going to stop sharing now and stop the poll. So here we go. And I'm going to share the result. So as you can see on the result, 34% of you say you're a change maker, 49% of you says you're an influencer, and 90% says none. So again, this is something we'll see if this 19% and the balance between the change maker and influencer will change after Stephanie's presentation. So thank you very much, everybody. Before we get started, so thank you very much, everybody. Again, so the presenter today is Stephanie Jaeger, program manager and process specialist at Synergetic Energy Partners Co. Limited. Stephanie Jaeger has over 8 years experience setting up project management processes and developing templates in different companies. In addition to that, she has managed projects and worked in senior management for over 15 years. She specializes in aligning project management processes to the corporate strategy and mentoring the team during implementation. Her experience is in the IT and healthcare sector, both in private enterprise and NGO sector. Stephanie focuses on the human factor in project management, program management, change management, PMO development, process management, and mentorship. She's the ideal partner to help you align yourself to the changing needs of the industry. She's also a certified strength deployment inventory facilitator, which is also SDI, psychometric testing for improvement of teamwork, outcome, and prevention of team conflict. Stephanie is also an experienced volunteer for Project Management Institute, also known as the PMI, having served on the PMI Kenya chapter board, the Region 16, and in a multiple other roles. She's also a registered nurse, has a BBA healthcare management, is a PMP certified, and is certified SDI facilitator. She's also a graduate of the PMI Leadership Institute Masterclass, LIMC, and she's also a regular content provider on the projectmanagement.com. Stephanie is a German citizen with 27 years of multicultural and multilingual experience in East Africa and is currently based from Kenya today as well. So please join me in welcoming, put your hands up for Stephanie as we get to share the screen with Stephanie. So again, thank you, Stephanie. Can't thank you enough for your time on this Saturday morning to be here with us right now. So yeah, already, so if you can share your screen, Stephanie, and take it away.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
Okay, so already we're getting questions from people, but we'll take that afterwards. What's your views on, quickly, if I just, you can see the result, right?
I found the polls very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The first one, where we had the word cloud.
Yeah.
I was happy to see that a lot of people think the same way I'm thinking. The majority was saying that the leader, that a change maker and influencer is a leader, is a persuader, makes a difference, is a positive thinker, and has an impact on others. So I think we're already very well on the right track. I found it interesting that 19% perceive themselves not to be a change maker or an influencer.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that we can change that perception with what I'm about to tell you.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. So let's just jump right in. First of all, a disclaimer. Of course, the views here are my personal views. The slides are protected by the copyright laws and used by permission. Actually, I shouldn't say Kenya, because Anil, you sit in Mauritius.
Yeah.
And any picture that I've used is either from free stock photo websites. I usually use Unsplash or Pexels, or they're my own private property. So let's tell you a little bit about who Stephanie is. Anil has told you about my professional career, but who am I? First of all, I'm a nurse. That was my first profession. I started training as a nurse when I was 19 years old after my A-levels. You see me there in the background in the light blue uniform. And I worked in the medical field for 17 years. And it was my passion. It was what I loved doing. I actually came to Kenya to work with the missionaries in the bush. and I worked 2 days drive out of Nairobi, and it was an adventure. I knew I was making an impact. I never saw myself as an influencer or change maker, but I enjoyed what I was doing. And suddenly I found myself being the project manager. You can imagine that was quite a jump. What happened was actually that I couldn't find a job in the medical profession. There was issues with work permits, and hospitals and medical providers were hesitant to employ foreigners. And then I got a job in a company that was providing software for the IT sector, sorry, for the healthcare sector. That's how I ended up in the IT world. That company closed down. One of the owners took me in his company, which was now a proper IT company. And suddenly I found myself wearing a hard hat, walking around construction sites and having to learn as I'm going along. The other thing that describes me very well is being a PMI volunteer. That is something that I've really enjoyed doing ever since I joined PMI 7 years ago. And it also has opened a lot of opportunities for myself. In this picture, you see me last year in Dublin in the PMI EMEA Congress, where projectmanagement.com had sent me as one of their community correspondents who were reporting live from the event. I'm also a consultant, I'm a trainer, a mentor, and an SDI assessor. As Anil had mentioned, I now work with Synergetic Energy Partners, which is a company that provides consultancy for managing infrastructure projects in the oil and gas sector and in a few other sectors. But I am not working on the client-facing projects. I'm working on internal projects at the moment. Okay, so much about me. And now just a brief on what we're going to go through today. First, of course, I'll be introducing the topic a little bit. Then we'll talk about the basics of emotional intelligence and understanding your stakeholders. We'll talk a little bit about how to be a subtle influencer. I'll tell you lots of practical stories and give you some practical tips. And then in the end, we'll do a short practical exercise where I'll get you to think a little bit. When you start thinking about a topic, it's always good to go back to the good old dictionary. So that's what I did. I looked at what is influence. Actually, my dictionary did not have the word influencer. So that's why I started with influence. And what it said is the effect something has on the way a person thinks or behaves, or on the way something works or develops. And of course, being a dictionary, there was point 2 and 3 and 4. Point 2, the power something has to make something behave in a particular way.
Yeah.
A person or thing that affects the way a person behaves or thinks. That was from the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. Now, if you read this, I think one of the questions I saw popping up earlier is actually already answered, because if you look at that, this is all about influence. But you can already see that that will make a change, because if you affect the way somebody thinks or behaves, and if you have an effect on how somebody behaves in a particular way, you're already making a change.
Yeah, Stephanie, just a quick one. So the question there was, can't a change maker be also an influencer?
Exactly my point. You actually, if you influence somebody and you're making a change, you will be a change maker. So to me, actually go hand in hand.
Awesome, thank you.
Then I went to online dictionaries and I found influencer described in the Cambridge Online Dictionary. It says a person who affects or changes the way other people behave. You see, already there we have the change. Then I went to the Merriam-Webster dictionary and it said, one who exerts influence, a person who inspires and guides the actions of others. Again, you can see there is the change. Also, when people think about influencers, they think of key opinion leaders, cultural influencers, and of course, these days there is the so-called influencer marketing, which people my age may not really understand what it's all about. Good, now that we have the definitions, let's dive in. Throughout the presentation, I will talk from the perspective of a project manager and a construction manager, because that's the world I know. But it doesn't matter where you are in your company and what position you have, it will apply to you as well. So think about it. Why do project managers and construction managers need to be influencers? First of all, they're experts and leaders in what they're doing. They're the only ones on the construction side, probably, who know how to manage a project. There may be a lot of opinions, but as a project manager or construction manager, you know from your experience and your training what you need to do and what is all involved. Think of it, you can't just take any painter on your project and tell him, okay, today you're the construction manager, because he has no idea what the other people are doing and how it's all supposed to work into each other. And the other thing is that you should be able to wake the interest in something, sway your target audience. So for example, let's say you're on your construction site, it's raining cats and dogs, you're still working on the main frame of the building. So everybody is getting wet. And nobody feels like working. Everybody feels like running for shelter. But there is that work that you need to do, and there's the time pressure. And you can see how the construction manager and the project manager, if he's on diet, will now run around and convince people to start doing their work. Yeah. So that's exactly what they're doing. And I can see Anil nodding. I can see him remembering many situations like that.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you may even have to counteract external influences. Like I remember, okay, it wasn't the project I was involved in, but that was a project that was happening near where I was staying. And suddenly none of the casual workers wanted to come and work there. And the people that were doing that project were really wondering what was happening. And it turned out that there had been some rumors about that this this construction site is actually haunted and that there is some witchcraft involved. So nobody wanted to go and work there.
Sure.
So of course the construction manager couldn't do his work without all the casual workers that do all the manual work, labor. And they had to find ways to convince them that this construction site is actually not haunted.
Wow.
Can you see that that's influencing people right there? And
Absolutely.
you're counteracting external influencing.
Wow.
So don't underrate yourself. Stop being a victim and feeling you have no influence. If you do any of these things, you are actually already an influencer. Just be genuine and vulnerable. Because if you try to be like someone else, like for example, you try now to work in Stephanie's style, or Stephanie tries to work in Anil's style, it's never going to convince anybody. Be yourself and also be vulnerable. If you don't know something or you don't know how to act on a situation, just say so. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will buy you the trust.
Stephanie, could you just expand on be vulnerable? I mean, I like this word. I've never heard this, but be genuine and be vulnerable when technically we don't want to be vulnerable because our egos, our status doesn't allow us to be vulnerable. Could you expand a bit more about that for the audience as well for me, please?
Sure. I mean, I remember when I first started working in Kenya, I kept on being told, never admit that you don't know something. Never admit that you have never done something before. Just bluff your way through. Do you think that will ever work? Nobody will ever believe you. But if you admit, I'm sorry, I've never done this before, but we'll figure it out, then the other party will believe you because now you're saying the truth. So being vulnerable basically means you admit you don't know everything, and you also admit if you've done something wrong. Like it's extremely powerful if you work with a team and you have messed up or you have done something wrong to someone, just stand up and say so and apologize. That's what being vulnerable is all about.
So thank you.
So as I said, if you have been doing any of these points up here, then you can do it. You are already an influencer. You just need to start working on using that. So how do we become an impactful change manager or influencer? That's where it comes to leadership. And I love this quote from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. I think in our minds, we just need to get rid of that idea that a leader is somebody because he is a party leader or is a political leader or he's the boss of the company. If you do any of these things that John Quincy Adams mentioned here, you inspire someone, you help somebody, you teach somebody, then you are a leader. And one of the big words that you hear these days is emotional intelligence, which is now known as one of the basics of leadership. So a lot of people talk about it, and whenever they talk about it, they only talk about one pillar. They talk about understanding others. But as you can see in my graphic here, emotional intelligence actually has two parts. And the reason this is put as the understanding the others is put as the second part is actually because you have to do the other one first. That means you have to understand yourself, look at yourself, analyze when you're acting out of character. That usually happens when you're under stress, when you feel attacked, when you're in conflict with people, or even in conflict with yourself. That's when you act out of character. And you need to analyze what's happening here. Why am I acting this way? What has happened? And as you feel more and more stressed out or more and more conflict, you actually go through different stages and you start acting in different ways. And once you start understanding what's happening, the minute you act out of character, you can rein yourself in again because you know, wait a minute, I am in conflict here. I need to take a step back and I need to get back to my own happy self. And when you have understood yourself and learned to manage yourself, and by the way, we will never do that 100%. All of us have our bad days. If Anil gets up one day and his kids have been crying the whole night and he's been arguing with his wife because none of them got enough sleep, not that he is not going to be his own chirpy self in the morning, and on the construction site, he may just act differently. But if you realize these symptoms in yourself, then you can take a step back, count to 10, go have a cup of tea or whatever you can do to get yourself back down, talk with someone. I do that a lot. I call up a friend or a colleague and just chat with them about the situation to help me get out of it. And then you can go and look at others. If you look now at, let's say I look at Davison, and I know usually he acts a certain way, and today he's just not behaving the same way. He's not working the same way, his performance is not the same, then I need to go and find out what's happening with him and help him get out of the situation. And emotional intelligence, to me, you cannot do it unless you have empathy. Not sympathy, so don't feel sorry for people, but empathy. Understand why is he acting this way today and what can we do to get him out of it.
Absolutely. And just quick one, Stephanie, for those of us who are listening right now, going back onto emotional intelligence, I mean, how do we embark on trainings to be better? Do we read books? I mean, having been in the industry for 30 years plus, what would be your advice to all of us today?
It should be a mixture of everything. One is, yes, read books about leadership, read books about emotional intelligence. I don't really have a favorite one, but there are many books out there. There is also a very interesting book in project management, which is called The Project Motivator.
Okay, The Project Motivator. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so exactly. It's written by a lady called Ruth Pierce.
Okay.
And emotional intelligence and empathy, there is a lot of books that have been written about it. You can attend leadership trainings. You can also work on yourself, keep analyzing. Today I've acted this way. What happened? What went on in my mind? It's not easy in the beginning because we always don't want to admit our shortcomings, but it can be very healing if you understand, why did I react this way? Why does this person rub me wrong that I always go into conflict when I'm talking with this person?
Exactly. And just a quick one as well, Stephanie. There's a question from an anonymous attendee. He or she goes on to say, I have noticed that I feel at my worst when I do not manage my feeling and action. So this is very, very true.
Yes, that's very true. And I can see that person is already on the way to managing herself or himself.
Excellent. Thank
Because
you
the
very much indeed.
first thing is to notice I've acted differently today. I'm not myself today.
Yeah, excellent. Stephanie, before you move on to the slide, I'd love to take this question quickly. And a quick breather from you for your side as well. So Hedwin is saying, should an influencer be only from a senior staff member, leader, or a junior staff, or a junior staff can also be an influencer?
Anybody can be an influencer. It doesn't matter where you are. And you'll see that later when I tell you some of the stories of where I managed to influence situations. And I always say, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because there is nothing special about me. I'm just a human being like everybody else.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I was a teenager, I was so shy and so introverted, I didn't even dare have my own opinion.
Wow.
I can imagine that you've seen I have gone through a bit of change.
Absolutely. And you're now a global role model for all of us in the project management profession. There's a question from Devrani about the haunted construction site. Shouldn't the influencer be a problem solver instead? I.e. influencing, therefore also means to be a solution provider.
I think if you're an influencer, you're working now with your team to find the solution. So again, influencing people and solution finding goes hand in hand.
Awesome.
So yes, you're very right.
Jessica from South Africa, I think that if you're vulnerable and if you show where your blind spots are, you become more of a change maker and ultimately a better leader to all. That's a statement, but what's your thought about that?
I totally agree with Jessica. I know I have been told several times that that is not the African way, but I see more and more leaders in Africa coming up who have understood that and become better leaders. Because if you admit your vulnerability, you admit that you're not perfect, people will realize that you're being genuine with them.
Yeah.
And the minute you're genuine, they will open up to you.
Yeah. Wow. Kaz N, with regard to emotional intelligence, does anxiety and panic attack mean you can't handle your emotion? How does one get over them when there's the issue of anxiety and panic attack?
Okay, anxiety and panic attacks always has a source somewhere, and it may not be that particular situation. Now we go into my medical side.
Yeah.
There is something that has happened in your life to you that triggers that. Yeah. Let me tell you an example. I had some unresolved issues in my life. And when we had a terror attack in Nairobi, where I happened to be on site, that was the Westgate attack. I was there. I never saw the terrorists, but still I went through a trauma. And as I was working through it with a trauma counselor afterwards, I realized why on some things I reacted a lot stronger than my partner who was with me in the same situation. And that's because it triggered old things coming up. And I want to encourage people who have or experience anxiety attacks and these kind of reactions, go and see a counselor. Go and see somebody, a therapist or somebody who can help you think through your own experiences so that you can sort these out. We all go through these things. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It's something that will make you stronger as you go through it because you will get over these anxiety attacks.
And just a quick one, there's a question coming up from Derani. again, drawing from your medical side, panic attack are permanent, and the person should live with this, right? So do we adapt to our way we get panic attack and, you know, being breathless, heart racing, and things like that?
Okay, the answer is yes and no. Because as you work with a counselor or a therapist, you will learn how to deal with it. Meaning your panic attacks will not go into that extreme that you used to experience. You will learn how to work yourself through it. Like I was explaining to a colleague of mine the other day, how I managed to work myself through some things that just trigger emotions like that. And you just use your brain power. But if I start talking about it in depth now, it will take another hour. Yeah. So you use your brain power to basically put another picture on that negative picture that's in your mind.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
that's something that therapists can teach you, which means, yes, you will still experience panic attacks and anxiety, but you will not experience it in that way that actually immobilizes you.
yeah. All right, thank you. Just before we go to the next slide, that's just a statement from Chetla from India. Being a HOD, I usually accept my vulnerability, and this helps in the team bonding between management and the worker. So you've just basically nailed it there, Stephanie, when you say vulnerability mean, you know, team bonding between the team.
Exactly. I totally agree with what this gentleman said.
Okay, take it away, Stephanie. We'll come back after 10 minutes to take all the other questions that's coming in. Thank you.
What I'll tell you on this slide is actually straight from the strength deployment inventory. It's based on the teaching that we all have our inner motivational values. There are 3 main values, and we all have a primary focus on either one of them or a mixture of 2 or 3 of them. I call them the 3 Ps. The first one is people. I'm sure we all know somebody who is absolutely people focused. For a lot of people, the first one that comes to mind is Mother Teresa. Very people focused, always wants to make sure that people are okay. The second one is performance. And I'm sure you can already see the difference between that. That's somebody who is focused on the goal. If you take an example of, let's say we're doing a project where we want to vaccinate children in a certain area in our country. The one who is people focused will focus on how life will get better for the people, how the children will not get sick, how the mothers will be able to work more and earn more money and build a better life. The performance focused person will look at the end goal. We have achieved that 100% of the children are vaccinated. The outcome in both cases is the same, but you can see the focus is different. And as I said, you can even have a focus that's a mixture of the 2 of them. And the third main focus is processes. If you look at people that love numbers, they love graphs, and they love this kind of numerical results. As I said, this one looks, people focus looks at, we have vaccinated the children, their lives have gotten better. Their mothers' lives have gotten better. The performance-focused person will say, we have achieved 100%. The process-focused will say, we have used 500,000 syringes to vaccinate exactly 500,000 children. We didn't have any waste. And you can see these people, even when they talk to each other or when they talk about the story of this project, they will bring a totally different story. Now, when we are dealing with people that we want to influence, and especially if it's our bosses or anybody more senior within our organization, because we want to make a change, we have to look at what makes them tick. Is it any of these 3, or is it a mixture of some? You can even have a mixture of all 3 of them. Now we can have our vote on what is a leader.
Yeah, so what is a leader? Thank you, Stephanie. There's lots of questions coming in. Let's do the menti.com. So everybody, I'm going to share with you my slide on menti.com, and then I'm going to make you stop sharing there, Stephanie, because I need to share mine.
Oh,
So
sorry,
it's
I
fine. Yeah,
forgot.
I'm just going to take over and become a change maker. So you can see my slide and on the menti.com. So I would love to have your views, really, because again, we want to engage with you. And if you can type in, go to menti.com, menti.com, and then type in the password 5050898. So if you could do that, and then take your time, no rush, as we get to menti.com. So already people, our colleagues are putting in what is a leader: inspire, guide people, focus, change maker. It could be even an influencer, guys. What is a leader? You can mention them as well if you want. You can mention personalities around the world. So please put your comment there as well. Okay, so what is a leader? As you can see, Stephanie, there's lots of comments coming in now, showing the right way, taking responsibility. Inspirer, provider of the vision, directional, innovative thinking. An example, a person who does. So you've got Vanguard. Wow, that's a strong word, Vanguard. Need to check out with a dictionary on that one. Head, directional, helper, motivating others, someone with empathy. Okay, so we'll give you 30 seconds before we complete the second question of the day. What is a leader? Technical helper. Whoa, okay. Drive people to better, unleash your potential. Okay, and yeah, so I think we've got enough there to keep us going. So already we've got quite a lot. 35 of you has actually used menti.com right now. Chain puller, unleash your potential, head, guide, inspire, visionary, who set examples. So I think it's all there. Achieving best result, making things happen. So I'm going to stop here, and then we will move on to Stefan, if you can go back onto your slide. So we've got a nice comparison here of a multitude of nouns and adverbs. All yours. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the results. I love the results that came. The biggest number said a leader is a motivator. And then because people use different words, guider came, I think, at number 2, these two of them. And then visionary and a visionary probably was on number 3, and then number 4 was inspire. So I think that goes very well into what I had written here. Even that came up. A leader is a role model. First of all, you need to be willing to model the way. If you're a leader and you think that because you're the boss, you can come late every day, then you're basically giving everybody the right to come late every day. If you want your team to be honest, you need to be honest with them. So basically, you need to do and live what you want their team to live and do. And a leader also cultivates a great mindset. He works with people's values. He works with empathy, with emotional intelligence. And if certain things are important for people, you work with them with that. A leader is also supportive. He helps others excel and enabling them. So if you as a leader are not willing to guide your team and help them also if they're having difficult situations. For example, I remember we had somebody who was just not performing the right way. So I managed to sit down with him and draw him out over a cup of tea, because usually that relaxes people, And then he suddenly broke open and said his wife is actually in hospital. He's very sick. So we talked with him a little bit about it, and I managed the whole story. And then I asked him, okay, what can we do for you? It turned out that at that moment, the wife was actually in theater.
Wow.
So I asked him, what are you even doing here? I gave him an afternoon off without involving HR. I just told him, can you go to the hospital and call me in the evening how she's doing? And that alone helped this person so much that in future, he was a lot more motivated, but he was also a lot more open. So if there was an issue, he would come out immediately and say, there is this and this. And usually just giving them some advice helped them because they managed to now think it through themselves.
Yeah.
Talking a bit more about the values, working in a multicultural environment, there is a lot of things you need to think of. Like here, usually any project you do in Kenya, at least in the environment where I've worked, you end up with Christians, you end up with Muslims, probably there is a Hindu, maybe there's even a Buddhist. So there is all kinds of religions, and they all have different holidays. Some of them are government holidays, others are not. Like none of the Hindu holidays is a government holiday. But if you know that you have a Hindu in your group, then just keep your mind open and ask them even, Diwali is coming up. How do you celebrate it in your family? Do you want a day off that time? And then you plan the work around that so that you don't put too much pressure on them. The other thing a leader must be definitely is flexible. And I think we have all seen that during the Corona time. The minute Corona hit your country, you couldn't work as usual. You had to be flexible and find new approaches. Like in our company, we had discussed before whether we can consider letting people under certain circumstances working from home. And we had said at that point, people's minds may not be ready for it.
Yeah.
Then Corona came.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our first case was announced on a Friday. By Monday morning, all of us were working from home, apart from the ones who had to be on project sites. Of course, it took some getting used to, and I really admire what our boss did. He is somebody who reads a lot, so he shared a lot of the articles that he found helpful, and we started now also changing how we engaged as a leadership team.
Wow.
Because we had to change now suddenly to daily meetings because we wouldn't have that physical interaction in the office. And just having a little morning huddle every morning that lasts maybe half an hour has already helped us a lot. And a leader, to be perceived as a leader by his team and also by the bosses, needs to be reliable. So you can't be reliable today. Tomorrow, I don't feel like working and I just don't do much. I go and drink coffee instead. So for the team, it's very, very important that your boss is there and you know you can go to your boss and you can send him a message anytime and he will get back to you in a certain way that has been agreed. And a leader should also never, ever let the team down in front of senior people.
Absolutely.
If something went wrong, the leader should say, yes, sorry, I as the leader have failed. We as a team have failed. But should never say, oh, I couldn't do that because Anil didn't perform. And definitely a leader needs to give credit when it's due, but accept the blame when necessary. If somebody in your team has done something right, I know the tendency will be first to say, oh, I as the team leader have achieved this, or my team has achieved this. No, if Anil has done something extraordinary, I will give the credit. If Davison has put in extra hours over a weekend for us to achieve a certain milestone, I will say, if it wasn't for Davison, we wouldn't have achieved it.
Yeah.
And that will make a difference because that way you gain trust of your team and you also gain credibility with your bosses. And this is a very interesting one, challenges the process. Because, oops, I'm sorry. that is something that
So,
seems to go against the.
Stephanie, just a quick one on
Mhm.
to give credit. I want to really get your views on that. Why are we reluctant to many times where leaders or managers don't want to say to the staff, a tap on the back, you know what, you've done a good job today. Why is that? What's holding them up to say, not actually unleashing their comments to the colleagues to say, actually, you did a great job today, mate, so thank you very much. Why is that they hold back?
I think what holds us back is only our own insecurity. Here we are being the team leader, and we don't want anybody else to be seen as good as I am,
Right.
because that person might take over from me.
Yeah. I think that's a very valid point.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you.
And this point here of challenge the process, I know that might sound daunting when you think of processes that have been implemented before you even joined the company. But the question is, yes, we need processes, but is this process working? Is it working in this particular situation that we are in? Do we need to do a change? Like in project management, we these days teach you also that you need to customize to the needs of your particular project. And we've done that many times. For example, we had our framework, the processes were even developed by myself, but then we have this project where the processes just don't apply. And then you need to be flexible enough to say, okay, here, this is not going to work. We need to change this. But not just changing it for the sake of changing it, or because I don't like doing a work breakdown structure, it's a lot of work, so I just decided we don't need it.
Yeah.
But changing it because it's necessary.
Absolutely.
Now the question is, what is leadership actually? And the Creative Center for Leadership has actually put it very nicely. They said where commitment and alignment happens and the leader is willing to give direction, that's where real true leadership can happen. So if you as a leader are committed to your team and you make sure that everybody is aligned to the same vision, we have aligned our values to the team values, and I as the leader give direction, that's when true leadership can happen and people can perform at their best. So now that we've talked about leadership, how do I become a change maker? And to me, a change maker is always a subtle influencer. It's not the guy who walks up to the boss and says, hey, Mr. Boss, you're not doing this right. You need to do it differently. That doesn't work. Like I remember a scenario, there was a time we were doing a procedure on a patient. The patient was terrified. We were two nurses and the doctor. The doctor was doing his thing and I wasn't 100% convinced with what the doctor was doing,
Right.
but it wasn't really wrong. But I could see the patient was terrified. So I kept on talking to the patient, encouraging him, telling him, well, we're almost done. We're doing the right thing. It's hurting a bit now, but you're going to be better. And holding his hand. And the other nurse who was assisting the doctor suddenly said, Doctor, I wish you wouldn't be doing this. Can you imagine what happened?
Wow.
That patient got so terrified.
Oh my
Plus
God.
plus the doctor also got nervous. It was a young doctor who was still learning. I was going to talk to him about it afterwards. It wasn't 100% wrong what he was doing. He was still doing the right thing, just not in the way I would have seen it as more efficient. But just because the nurse spoke up at that moment, the patient, who is your client, lost all the trust in that doctor.
Wow.
You can imagine what happens if you're on a project site, your client is within hearing distance, and you're talking to one of your people saying, what you're doing is absolutely useless. That doesn't help. So you need to find a different way of dealing with that situation. How can you make that person do things differently? How can we make that doctor do it better in future?
Yeah. Absolutely. So just quick one, Stephanie, if you're okay. Again, some quick breather. We've got lots of questions coming in. So we'll, if you can obviously, let's take a few questions if it's okay with yourself. So
Sure.
there's a question from Neva. Influencing bosses is a challenge at times, especially when they are adamant. Any pointers for adamant bosses? What's your advice to adamant bosses? And maybe, just general advice. What's your thoughts?
That's where I'm coming to right now.
Okay.
You need, because especially if you have a boss who is very bossy and who thinks it's my way or the highway, you can still influence them. You just need to work with their mind indirectly. It takes longer, but it is very, very effective. And I'll tell you a few stories about that.
Okay, thank you. There's another statement and question from Lakshmi. Sharing is good, but how much should we share to ease ourselves? Sometimes sharing emotion at workplace can play against us.
The reason I'm laughing is I remember a situation where I was actually terrifying all my male colleagues.
Wow.
Because of being too emotional.
Right.
Okay, I was going through the normal aging processes of a lady. And it's the dreaded perimenopause when everything goes wrong in your body. And you go through these phases where you just burst out in tears and you can't help it.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that all the guys were avoiding to talk to me. Even when I was trying to do individual discussions with them, they were all terrified I'd burst into tears again.
Wow.
So I sat down with those that I felt comfortable to do it with and explained to them what is happening. And that it's nothing that they are doing, but it's actually just the things my body is going through right now. Doesn't make me weak, it's just a fact of nature. And when two of them understood the situation, and we also discussed on what seems to have triggered it in the different situations, we were able to talk about it. Now I'm talking here about your typical African man, yeah? And that is both Asian and African, who are not used to talk about emotions. They're not used to talk about female problems.
That's
It's
good,
usually just kept quiet in our environment, but I did manage to talk to them and explain the situation. I allowed myself to be vulnerable, and slowly the situation changed. Then also I found some natural products that helped me. So the situation improved in all directions. And we still respect each other. And even so, I no longer work in that company. When we meet as professionals, and we have mutual respect.
Wow, awesome. Thank you. Just quick one from Abhimanjit from India. In case I have a very bad manager, will emotional intelligence help me to manage him? So quickly, I think, will AI help, manage his manager?
Yes, it definitely will. You don't get immediate successes, but you will slowly convince that boss that you are a reliable person and a good resource, and they will start respecting you and becoming less bossy. A lot of our bosses that are too dictatorial, they're usually dealing with their own insecurities. And some of the things I will still talk about is how can we do that? How can we be that subtle influencer? That's why I don't want to go into detail right now in this answer.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. There's just a statement again from Chetlal. Showing empathy also helped me understand the people in my environment. Thank you. The next one is Tijo. Tijo, we are answering your question now. Tijo says his question was not answered. Tijo says, emotional intelligence is part of professional ethics, question mark. So is ethics part of emotional intelligence? Your view, Stephanie?
I would say in a way it is, because I think it is your responsibility if you are a leader to understand your team. And for that, you use your emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
In order to give everybody a fair chance within your team, you have to understand them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to take two more questions before we move on to your slide. One from a young engineer, Mokshita. Hi, madam. How should a project manager encourage or influence workers to get them to complete work within a certain period of time when you can see they are procrastinating, so they're being really slow and delaying completion of work? So how can you, motivate, encourage workers during a long period of time, especially when you see that they are actually procrastinating and delaying completion of work? You pay them more, I believe.
I think the first one you do is you make them stop work and buy them a cup of tea.
Right.
I know I'm actually not really a tea drinker, yeah, but having that tea with them and sitting down with them, and especially, I don't know how it is in Mauritius, but in Kenya on construction sites, you usually have ladies coming with big thermoses and buckets full of food and selling it. It's not exactly your high cuisine, but if you sit there with your team and you all buy them a cup of that tea and you're just chatting, getting to know each other, talking about your lives, not about work while you're having that tea, you're starting to build a relationship. And once you have that relationship, you can now sit down with them and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And you sit with them either, depending on the situation, either in a group or one-on-one, and ask them, okay, we're not making any progress here. What actually is happening? What's stopping us from performing? And then try and draw them out. But you'll see if they are scared, for example, that they may be laid off because we're having Corona and the economy is bad, and this project is the last one that they know they have, they may not perform because they want that project to last forever. They
Absolutely.
don't want to be jobless. But they won't tell you that unless you have built a relationship with them.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you completely. I mean, many a time, how many times have we sat down with the workers and have a meal, have a tea, like you mentioned? We don't do it often. The more you create that rapport and relationship, the better the relationship and the more you can get work done. So thanks very much. I'll take two more questions before we move on to the next slide. From Govin Jita, how to deal with negative feedback when one is genuinely trying to influence others to have a better quality of life, such as quitting cigarette smoking. So how to deal with negative feedback when one is genuinely trying to influence others? Your views quickly on that.
Okay, like for example, if it's about cigarette smoking, the smoker probably already knows it's not good for them. So if you keep on banging it around their head, telling them it's bad for you, it's bad for you, it's bad for you, what they will do is they will withdraw. So just turn it the other way around. Find out how did they start smoking, but do it in a gentle way. Again, it's best over a cup of tea. You relax first, and then you ask them, okay, when did you start smoking and why? How did you start smoking?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of us start smoking because the other guys our age or the ones that are 1-2 years older are smoking. And they think it's cool. And then it's difficult to stop. Smoke because of stress relief.
Yeah.
And that way you learn to understand, why is this person smoking? And then instead of telling him, stop smoking, you can maybe give him some pointers on how to release that stress or how to get over whatever keeps them smoking.
Absolutely.
And you can directly transfer that kind of approach to any other situation in life.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. One more before we finish from a very experienced project manager and quantity surveyor, Prakash. I believe Hitler was the world's greatest influencer, as he managed to influence millions of people right to hell. Don't you think these people have some special inborn qualities to easily influence people to be in a positive or negative way? Quickly, your views on that.
I knew Hitler would come up at some point. I think he was one of the biggest influencers, but the question is, are you using your skills to influence in a positive or a negative way? And what he did is something that can work for us if we do it in a positive way. He used marketing. He had these two guys called Himmler and Goebbels, who were the marketing managers. They had other titles, but they were marketing managers. And they did all the marketing material. And they literally brainwashed people. And then Hitler himself was an excellent orator. I'm sure he has taken speech lessons at some point or other.
Wow.
So he knew how to spin a good tale and give a good speech. And that's how he influenced people. But again, he tried the same things in 1923 and it didn't work because the situation wasn't ready for him. That time people didn't have so many other worries. So they realized the guy is trying to do something that is not good for us. Then the Great Depression hit, and it hit in Germany as well. A lot of people had lost their jobs. I think at some point 60% of the population were jobless. People were hungry. And people didn't also know what to do with their children. And then Hitler had meanwhile done his homework, and he started by influencing indirectly. One of the first things he did when he got into power is start holiday camps for the kids that were for free. They were government funded. They looked like any scout camp. So people were like, wow, this guy is great. And they were more and more willing to listen to him. And then he slowly started giving his message.
Wow.
So yes, there are lessons we can learn from him, but we should just make sure we don't use it for the negative.
Exactly. Thank you, Raj, indeed. We can just quickly, before you move on to the next slide, Michael, loving the stories as a great way to convey the message and learn. So thank you, Raj, indeed. All yours. We've got about 50 minutes, so all yours for the next slide. Take it away, Stephanie. Thank you very much indeed.
So thank you very much. That was Michael, yeah?
Yeah, Michael from South Africa. But we've got questions coming up from Prabhu, Dirani, Jessica, Henry, which we will take afterwards. There's so many questions, but we will let's enjoy your slides as we go through.
Sure. So as I said, we have to learn to understand our superiors. We need to know their personality and what is their inner motivational focus. Remember the 3 Ps we just talked about? You need to figure out what makes them tick. Is their focus numbers? Is their focus results? Is their focus people? Or is it a combination? Like sometimes he looks people focused, sometimes he looks performance focused. So this is the first thing you need to try and figure out. What makes them tick? Like I remember in one of my employments, I was working for 2 brothers that were as different as could be. And I realized one wants you, in every report, he wants you to give 3 bullet points to be very performance focused. The other one wanted to have all the statistics and results, but he also had a people focus. So he was actually a combination of people focus and process focus. So I customized my reports to them. I would give them 2 different results with the same content, but just presented differently. The one who wants 3 bullet points, you give him 3 bullet points. If you have verbal diarrhea the way I do, it takes you a while to figure out how to put your message that should be 3 pages into 3 bullet points, but it's possible. Yeah. While the other one, I would now explore it a bit more. I give him the 3 bullet points, then I add a story about the people and I add a graph or 2. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Either you have some bosses who want you to tell a story, then you tell them the story. Somebody wants the bullet points, give him the bullet points. Don't tell him a story because he doesn't want a story. He's not going to read it.
And Stephanie, many a time, a lot of people write a story when nobody reads it.
Yeah.
We've been there before.
I know. I mean, that was actually how I learned it because I realized my emails were never read by them. There was never any response. And next meeting, we would talk about the content of the email and they're like, oh, you have never told us that. I'm like, it was in my email. And then I asked him, how would you like me to report it? And I took ample notes. And he said, the performance focused one said, I want 3 bullet points. If you need more explanations, you can do it below, but everything needs to start with 3 bullet points. The other one said, no, I want the graphs. I want this numbers and the statistics. So then I said, okay, I'll be doing you two different reports. And they looked at me very surprised. And I said, let's just try it out. And it worked, and both of them were happy.
Yeah, I
And
think I need to thank you. I need to thank you for that slide, because many a time we are under massive pressure to write reports without realizing what the client wants. And then
yeah,
afterwards, we spend hours and nights on, and then the client said, look, all I did was, fabulous points. So maybe, like you said, it's best to get the requirements of a reporting first,
yeah.
and then you get onto it.
To me, that's actually part of your project kickoff when you're doing your client kickoff, that you discuss, okay, usually we do our reports this way. Have a look at it. We'll discuss it. You take them through the report, and then you ask them, does that give you the information that you need? Is there information you don't need, so that we can customize it for you?
Yeah.
And never think you can write one report to your client, to your boss, and to your colleagues. That doesn't work.
Yeah. Thank you for this.
Because there's information that each party doesn't need, that only one party needs.
Yeah, thank you.
And as a rule of thumb, that 5-page report, never send it to your boss unless he asks for it. Because a boss is a busy man or a busy woman. They don't have the time to reach the 5 pages. They want a 1-pager. And then once you have understood what makes your bosses tick, what is their focus, what is their preferred reporting format, you now use that knowledge for more impact. Can you see already, if you're using just these 2 simple things,
yeah,
you can start influencing them, because you're giving them what they want, which means they open up to you because they're happy with your reports.
yeah.
They will listen to anything you say more because you're bringing it the way they want it.
No, thank you very much indeed, Stephanie, for this. And the audience as well, the participant, please let us know your statement. Put some comments if you agree with what Stephanie said or disagree. But I personally agree with what you've just said. And to me, I've learned something new. So, thank you very much indeed, Stephanie.
Thanks for that. Now let's get a bit more practical about that. For example, if you have a boss or a stakeholder who likes being asked for help, use that to your advantage. If you have something you want to prepare, let's say I'm preparing a client report and my boss likes being asked for help, then I will run that report by him. I know I've done it to the best of my knowledge. I think it's ready to go, but just run it by him. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't make you look weak. It makes the boss feel good because you're asking him for help. So don't think it's a sign of weakness if you ask for help. It actually can buy you brownie points with your boss.
But Stephanie, why are we scared to go to the boss in the first place? Because the boss will put red pen everywhere. And then, and when they get the report back, you're on the verge of crying. But that's good, right?
I've had reports like that, especially when I was still writing my 3 or 5 page reports. But if you have understood how that boss wants that information, do it in those bullet points and send it to him. And then you can even ask the boss, do you think the client would want more? And the boss will also tell you, because very often they know the client even better than you do, because they've been talking with them longer. And they will tell you, okay, the 3 bullet points may not be enough for him. Why don't you add a few sentences? That way you've avoided the red pen. You're happier when you're coming out. You don't feel so deflated. I know there have been times where I actually went then and took some time to myself because I was devastated. And over years, I learned that when you package the information the way the boss likes it, and then you ask them for their input and say, okay, I want to give the client this information. How do you think I formatted for him? Then the boss feels good. You've got some brownie points from him, and you haven't been devastated. You don't see all that red pen.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
The other thing that I've used is a customized dashboard for my bosses. Because some of them also told me, oh, we're so busy, we don't have time to read all your emails. Can we have some tool where we can see the information. Or sometimes they won't say that, they will just not read your reports. And that's when you have to realize maybe they're too busy. Dashboards can be built. I have absolutely no background in IT as much as I worked in 2 different IT-based companies. But I learned a lot just by asking some of my colleagues of how they do it, learning from people when I see something fancy. And that's when I realized the power even of a simple spreadsheet. And there's ways you can set that up. And if you put it as a shared sheet, for example, on Google Drive, you don't need a fancy software. Yeah. But if you have a sheet on Google Drive that you update all the time and you have created a graph somewhere, then make that graph accessible to your boss so that they can see with one look what's happening. I mean, the dashboard in the car is the one that tells you, still have enough fuel, I'm going at this speed, this is my RPM, and whatever else it shows you, this is the temperature of my car. And that's what a dashboard does in an office. Bosses need dashboards. They can see in one view what's happening. They don't have to call you. They don't have to start shouting at you, where is this report, which you sent to them 2 days ago, but they never read the email.
Yeah.
And most of them love it if you customize it to them. But you can't just go to their computer and start implementing things. So what I did is I developed a number of dashboards on my computer, actually utilizing the software we were using. We were using a scheduling software known as Rike, and showed it to them during the next meeting. And I showed them the different graphs and how they can use the graphs to drill down into the different tasks so that they only have to go into details where they have questions. And you're not giving them pages and pages of details for every project. And when they liked it, I asked them, would you like me to set it up on your computer? You can have it. In that company, the IT policy allowed me to do it myself. Before you start setting up anything on your boss's computer, check your IT policy. If the IT people have to do it, then do it through them and be with them and show them exactly how to customize it.
And Stephanie, just quick one on the scheduling software, right? Is it WRIKE?
Exactly.
Right. I've just sent that to all the participants for them to do a quick Google. The scheduling software is right, WRIKE. Have a look at that. And I want to just share something with you, Stephanie, as well, a dashboard story. I think I was reading a book where an engineer had to report on an oil company, and he was driving his car and thinking, how do I condense all the information and give it to all the stakeholders, like the board, the directors, the external party? And then while looking at his dashboard, you just mentioned there in his car, he saw like my car on the dashboard in my car is telling me everything. The petrol, the speed I'm going, if there's an issue in the car, it will flag. So everything was in the dashboard. And this is where the dashboard comes up, and you just mentioned that as well.
Yeah.
All right,
a very
thank
good
you
story.
much. Thank you. Yeah.
I think the main idea is however you package your information that you give to your bosses and how you make it available, you just need to be creative. Ask some of your colleagues, they may have good ideas. That's also where it's important to attend networking events where you get to know other people in your profession, and then just start exchanging ideas with them. I mean, there is many times where I throw some question that I have into a group of people. I'm also in quite a number of WhatsApp groups that are professional, where we just keep on exchanging ideas. And you just throw a question at every people come back with their ideas, and definitely you'll find something that will work for you. But I think the main word here is what works for that particular stakeholder. So what works for my approach when I'm talking with Anil will not work when I'm talking with Davison, because they're different characters. And I think you have already seen the gist of it. In order to do this, you need to get involved with them and build a relationship. I know it can be daunting in the beginning when you have this big boss who looks so scary and intimidating, but you still need to find a way of building a relationship with them. And it can start very simple. For example, if you know your boss the wife has just had a baby, just ask them, how is your baby doing? How is the mother doing? Or if you hear him saying that he's had problem with his car, ask him the next day, did you manage to sort out the problem with your car? That's not being nosy. It's just trying to build a relationship. Now you've talked about the car. You have a different way of interacting. If you even get a chance to have a cup of tea with them, next time you have a conflict that you have to resolve, you engage totally different because you've had that relaxing time together and you've chatted about it, told each other about each other's life and so on. So the relationship building, some people even call emotional intelligence relationship intelligence. You can only really get to know them if you build relationships. And that attitude that some people have of at work, I only talk about work, I don't talk personal things, doesn't really work. Unless you get involved with people, you can't build true relationships.
Absolutely.
The next big thing is that you need to build trust, and that's in all directions. You need to build trust in your bosses, that they learn to trust you. You need to build trust in your team, that they trust you, and all other stakeholders. So it's very engaging and very involving process. As I said, ask for input in your solution. That doesn't make you feel like you are you're not sure of yourself. You're just asking them for input. You've done your best. You're comfortable. Now take it to your boss and ask him, what do you think? And in the beginning, they may come out with a red pen. But since you're coming to them every time and you're not scared to come with them, they will start relaxing and they will start seeing, well, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. And every once in a while, they'll even tell you, oh, I know you're doing your stuff. I'm busy right now. You can just send it out.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize you've built trust. As much as I've told you that you need to have that small talk with your boss, where you build the relationship, when it comes to reports, only give the relevant information, cut the small talk. Don't do stuff of reports that are 5 pages long and nobody wants to read because they're just too long. A very important tool is also lessons learned sessions with your project team, where you then as a team come up with possible solutions and present it to your seniors. In a lessons learned session, you look at 3 different things. You look at what went well in the project, what didn't go well, and how can we prevent it in future. And that's where your solutions come in. So as a team, if you're sitting down, that also helps you build your team and build trust within your team. You think about the project and you do it very unemotional, yeah? It's not a time to start pointing fingers again and say, oh, if Anil hadn't done that, we wouldn't have been in the problem. It's about what's the issue. And that's where you as the team leader need to now direct them and pull them back. If somebody starts now talking about, oh, Anil has done this, tell them, this is not about Anil. What was the issue here? And then you come up.
Just a quick one, sorry. How do you capture lesson learned? Because I do struggle sometimes with lesson learned, because when the project is over after 2 years, we are now thinking what went wrong. So in terms of a habit, do we do a lesson learned just for, it could be just the individual himself? Does it just every 2 weeks you write something on the lesson log? How does it work for you?
Actually, the ideal world is when you implement a lessons learned culture, where either you sit down every 2 weeks, like you suggested, or every time after you've had an issue, you sit down and analyze it in a neutral way. Doing it at the end of your 5-year project, of course, you will have forgotten most of the stuff already.
Yeah.
Plus, by that time, you've started 3 other projects in the company where these lessons learned could have been an input to make things better.
So we need to really have it in the diary, maybe book it physically, half an hour. Even if it's 30 minutes of lesson learned, have it on the diary, book it for every week. At least we keep writing, because there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be things something we're going to learn.
Yeah, and then any solutions you come up with then need to be packaged and presented to the seniors in the format that senior person wants it.
Thank you.
And as you bring those solutions, you can just see how your seniors will start trusting you. Because most bosses are used to people coming to them with problems, saying, oh, I'm stranded here, I don't know what to do. Or we have this problem, Mr. Boss, help me. But here is now this project manager or construction manager who comes with a solution and says, could you be? So don't present it as, I think we should be doing, because that way you're telling the boss what to do. But you just rephrase it. You say, we thought this could be a possible solution. What do you think?
Yeah.
The other way to build trust is be on top of your projects. Basically, if your boss calls you at 3 a.m. in the morning, you should be able to give an update on all the projects without having to open your computer. That takes some time to get used to. As a nurse, we were used to it anyway, because anytime a doctor could come in and we needed to give them an update, there was no time to go look for the file.
Wow.
And so I think we trained ourselves. It's a kind of a training yourself to just touch base. But also you have to, even if you're the project manager who's not on site all the time because you have office work, or maybe you have other projects you're running, make sure you touch base with your team every single day.
Yeah.
And train them to give you the important information. And this, we've talked about it before. Report about the successes in your team. And don't just say, we as a team, or I have done this. No, if it was Anil, say it was Anil. Say, I'm extremely proud of what he has done. If it's Davison, you say it's Davison. That will help build trust because the boss knows that you are their leader. You're in charge of them. So you subconsciously, he will understand you as a leader have made them do it. You have brought them out. You have made them grow to do it. Now this, most people always react like, oh, I can't do that. Suggest a workshop for your leadership team. It actually does work, yeah? What you do is you look at knowledge gaps and at opportunities, but never in a confrontational way.
Yeah.
For example, when I joined a company, when I was tasked to set up a project management office, I asked the directors if I can take them through project management the way I understand it. I didn't say, you're dunderheads, you've never done projects, you don't know what it is. They've been doing projects their own way. But I told them, can I take you through the standards that we've been taught in Project Management Institute and the standards I would love to work with? And then you just give them a short run through. And you can do that with any knowledge gap that you have. For example, let's say it's the first time you're doing a construction project where you're going to use green energy solutions. And you know your boss doesn't know much about it. Just ask him for 1 hour and give him a big quick run through so that he starts understanding it. That way his mind will already be ready when you need whatever else you need for that particular thing.
Absolutely.
And then also use opportunities. Like the same company where I had done that talk about project management, I gave them a 1 hour run through the entire project management book of knowledge, which is a book of 700 something pages.
Wow.
But we condensed it into 1 hour because they don't need to know all the nitty gritties, they need a high level. And then we had a new finance director joining. So I asked again, could I have 1 or 2 hours of your time? Because with the new finance director joining, I would like to take you through the possibilities of cost management. And then we can discuss together what we could change for more effectiveness in the future. And I took them through the cost management module of the project management training and told them, these are the things we can do. They had never heard of earned value management. And they saw the possibilities. But then you never point out the things that are going wrong in the company.
Yeah.
You just give them the knowledge, you plant the seeds. That's why I loved that video you were showing us. I don't know if people saw the trees growing in the end.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You're just planting the seed and then you let that knowledge sit. In that particular case, one guy had an aha moment and he said, but if you want to do that, we have to change entirely how we are doing our sales process. And I just kept quiet. I smiled and kept quiet because that was exactly what I wanted them to change. But if I would have said it at that moment, they might have perceived it as insubordination or being rude or something. I just let it sit there. It took 2 years for him to start changing. But in between, he started coming back and asking a few questions and usually mumbling, nah, doesn't work. Then you don't argue with him, just let it sit. That information is in their head now, it will work.
Yeah. Awesome.
So there's no point in pointing out the shortcomings or blame. You just show possibilities. Let it sit and always end these sessions with a discussion. You can ask them even to get the discussion going. You can just ask them, do you think that's something that could work in this company? And the other thing is to build trust within your team. And there's a couple of things I've done successfully, and I just want to share them. One is share knowledge. You could have, for example, every time you have a team meeting, you could say, okay, the first 10 minutes of a team meeting, let's have some knowledge sharing so that we can all learn from each other. Because in your project team, you will have the specialists in the different areas and the different disciplines. Let them talk about something. 10 minutes is not much. And what you're doing at that point is that each team member gives a talk, you take turns, and each team member is going to be terrified in the beginning because we're not used to talking in front of groups. And at the same time, they feel flattered that you're asking them to share their knowledge. As the project manager, for example, or even as the construction manager, you are not the subject matter expert of every single thing. You're the one who has the general knowledge. And as a construction manager, do you really know how to program that IT data infrastructure that has just been installed? You don't need to know it. You just need to understand this will take so and so many weeks. This is what they're doing. This is what the system is supposed to be doing at the end.
And that's very important. That's very important, Stephanie, because I'm sure many of us in the construction industry, or it could be any industry you're watching right now, we don't have time. Whenever we do meetings, we really get into the project. It's not about the knowledge sharing. The pressure kicks in. Monday meeting, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 7:30. You go into the meeting, you ride through the project, as opposed to really get to share those knowledge, share those nuggets of wisdom. We don't do that, and I think that's very important to mention there.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's very, very important to really time it. If somebody gives this talk, after 10 minutes, tell them, okay, 10 minutes are over. So that it doesn't eat into your meeting time. If you plan it that way, it's possible. Then you could also do a company-wide knowledge campaign. For example, in one company, the first time I was now told, oh, I hadn't even told you how I became project manager. One day, now I was working in this IT company. I was doing customer relations, which basically means all clients' complaints that couldn't be resolved easily ended up on my desk. And among them, there was a lot of data infrastructure projects. So I started dealing with them, but I had no idea about project management and I had no intention of going into project management. So one day my boss calls me and tells me, we want you to do project management. I told him, I know nothing about it. I think it's better if you employ somebody who's a trained project manager.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit back and forth. He left me alone for a few months. Then he summoned me. This time it wasn't a friendly, it was like, come to my office now. And he sat there with another senior manager, had a piece of paper in front of him, and he said, I know you've refused before, but we want you to do project management.
Wow.
And in actual fact, I'm quite happy to suck you right now if you don't want to do it. And he pretended he's signing my dismissal letter. I looked at him. I told him, okay, I've told you before, I know nothing about project management and I don't think I'm the right person. He said, it doesn't matter. You want to go, I sign right now. I told him, okay, since you're putting the gun on my chest, I'll do it, but just know I know nothing about it and I need help because I don't know anything about this project management thing. And then I was promised a mentor, and later I got training instead of a mentor.
Wow.
But I had to deep dive, and I was immediately charged with with setting up a project management office. Did I even know what did I even know what a project management office was? I realized very quickly when I asked a few questions that even my bosses weren't that sure what a project management office is. They just thought it was the solution to their problems.
And Stephanie, just a quick one, being a role model, and there's lots of girls and women watching you today, right now, as the live audience. So your manager empowered you, you would say, like gave you the opportunity to be a project manager now? I mean, what's the message you're going to say to us today?
Okay,
opportunity.
The way it felt at that moment is that I've been made responsible for something that I have no idea about. And in that company, it also didn't feel like you've really been given authority.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to solve their problem. You don't have decision-making power, and you're responsible for anything that goes wrong. So it felt quite intimidating. And then when I realized I wasn't going to get a mentor because they couldn't find any, we didn't have any internal resource. And then I looked up different kinds of trainings. The first thing I did was an MS project training, because that was one of the softwares we were using. That company was a Microsoft partner, so we had the software available anyway. And here I was told, use this, and I had no idea. So I managed to get them to pay me for the training. And I did the training, and then I said, that's, yeah, fine, it has taught me how to plan a project. I still don't know much more about project management. And then I looked around and stumbled upon PMP certification. In Kenya, there are so many different certifications. The first few colleges I approached deleted themselves from my possible list by not answering to emails or phone calls.
Wow.
And then I came across Prince 2 certification, which was very expensive. And it was only, at that time, only providers that came from the outside. They would come for a whole week training, and then you're supposed to be certified by the end of it. And I knew the company would never pay for that, and I couldn't afford it. Then I found the PMP certification, which was much cheaper. And at that point, it was actually my decision to take PMP.
Okay, so Stefan is frozen a little bit. Davison, can you hear us okay?
And you just work on it that way. And yeah, when I now had all this new knowledge, where I went through the PMP training, for me to also settle that knowledge in my brain and embrace it, I started doing a presentation for my colleagues, for the people in the data infrastructure team, so that they understood where I was coming from. And then I realized how much it influenced them in understanding why certain things in the project are important, why, for example, it's important to meet your deadlines. I realized it's powerful. And by that time, I'd also realized that in that company, nobody really knew much about project management in the departments I was working with. And then I said, okay, let me just go around and share that new knowledge I had with everybody. Of course, it took some negotiating. I tackled the senior management first. And I asked them, okay, can I take you through project management the way I'm learning it now, so that we can discuss how we can implement that in our company. And once I had their buy-in after that presentation, which the time you're given, take only half the time for the presentation, because you need at least the same amount of time for your discussions.
Yeah.
And they may not end there. And then I got permission to go to all departments, and I really customized it for each department. So when I went to accounts, I showed them the role they play within the project. When I went to procurement, I showed them the role they play. If they don't do this, the project team can't do that. And it actually brought a big change, because before, everybody always blamed the poor project teams on not performing, forgetting that they hadn't made the money available, so the material wasn't bought, they didn't have cable to pull, so of course they couldn't install their data infrastructure.
Yeah. Stephanie, just to let you know, we've got about 10 minutes, and then we'll take questions, and yeah, it's getting really, really entertaining. But yeah, we've got about 10 minutes to wrap up to take all the questions.
Sure. Another possibility to share knowledge with your team is also general knowledge sharing for all employees. I saw that in one company. They were already doing that when I joined them. Every Monday morning, they got together as entire company that were in that location, and you had knowledge sharing. Everybody had to give a talk. So the accountant came and talked about how you can make your money last longer. Another one came and talked about why it's not good to take a loan and how you can go about it buying expensive things without taking a loan. And one of the admin ladies talked about how to make the best chapatis. It's a lot of fun. People get to know each other, and it's not just the technical knowledge.
Yeah.
Lessons learned reporting, I already talked about it, how that can also build your team, because everybody gets to give his input. And then you can decide whatever else fits your situation, what works with your team. And the results for that is your team will get the confidence to speak, and that will also give them the confidence to speak up. Let's say they're now on a site meeting,
Yeah.
and there is this intimidating architect who is shouting at everybody. If that architect suggests something that doesn't work, because they've gotten the confidence of their own knowledge,
Absolutely.
they may say, okay, it's not going to work for us. What can we do?
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you give them a chance to speak and share their knowledge, they will feel appreciated and recognized, which gives them another boost in their self-esteem. And with all these little things that you're doing that cost you nothing apart from a bit of time, you will have a growing sense of camaraderie and trust between team members.
So Stephanie, just before you move on, I've got a poll here, which I would like to share with the audience. So, and a quick breather from you. We've got about 15, 20 minutes to finish off. So we've got time. So I want to just share that with the poll now. And again, based on the audience experience, I really appreciate if you can put your vote in. What is your preferred way to gain trust? Good rapport through lesson learned from your team, or you empower your team? This is something Stephanie and I worked on the question. What is your preferred way to gain trust? Good rapport, having good relationship, lesson learned, which Stephanie just mentioned, or empowering your team. So already 50% of you have voted. Please, please, please put your vote in. What is your preferred way to gain trust? Good rapport, lesson learned, or you empower your team? Very, very important to know that one, because I think trust is absolutely fundamental when we talk about projects, any type of projects really. So what is rapport? So 65% of you have voted, and I'm going to share the result with Stephanie now. So Stephanie, good rapport, 31%. Lesson learned, not so much, 9%. But a whopping 60% goes on to say empowering your team. What's your views on that, Stephanie?
I think that's excellent. Empowering your team is unbelievably important.
Yeah.
It really builds the trust. But then there may be times where you need to use the others as well. And the lessons learned will do a lot in your team. So don't underrate it, but it may not be your primary way of gaining trust. It will gain you trust in the long run.
Yeah, thank you.
Now here there are a few other things how I've shared knowledge for better support and collaboration. Remember I told you the story about that I realized even my bosses didn't know what a PMO was. I could have told them, okay, go and Google it. But of course that wasn't the situation because suddenly I had been made the subject matter expert and I was learning on the go. So never assume that your superiors and decision makers actually understand your discipline. Even if you have an architect on a construction site, does he understand the ins and outs of every little thing that you're doing? They will probably know the bigger structural things, but the nitty-gritties, how does air curtain work when you're building a restaurant? It's something that's not that used in Kenya. I've only experienced it in the high-end hotels where we were involved, but the normal places won't have an air curtain. I didn't even know what it was. Not that I had anything to do with it. Then take some time and explain it to them. Then also never assume that the other internal stakeholders understand their role in the project lifecycle. Like that situation where we had people working in silos and everybody was blaming the project teams and saying, these people are useless. And when I now took them through it and worked with something called swim lanes, then they suddenly understood if they don't make the money available at the right time, procurement cannot buy. And if procurement hasn't bought, then the project team sits on site and can't do anything.
Yeah.
So you can't blame them for being useless. Or if the money hasn't been gotten from the client, if you hadn't written that invoice that we asked you to write 3 weeks ago, we won't have the money. So suddenly they realized that they actually have a part to play. And so what I've used in the past was formal training, workshops where people work together and come up with solutions together. And when you work with flowcharts, use the one that are called swim lanes, where you basically have a lane for every department or every individual. And as you're putting your flow chart, you're putting the tasks where the responsibility is. And that's how you can show them very, very simply that's your responsibility. It even becomes more powerful if you put each swim lane in a different color because they can see, oh, I'm yellow. There is a task for me here. And when we did that at that one company, suddenly when the boss was shouting, why isn't this project finished? Why can't we invoice? Suddenly all the departments would jump up and say, hey, Mr. Project Manager, is there something you're waiting for from me to finish the project? What's keeping it? And that way it became a lot more efficient. And they slowly learned to respect each other and work with each other. But whatever you do in terms of knowledge sharing, make sure it gets interactive and make it fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
The vote we've already done. Now here are some important tips. One is, in order to build trust and in order to influence your bosses, you need to learn to speak up. Speak up respectfully, but say things confidently. You're the subject matter expert. Your boss is not. Unless your boss is also a construction manager, a project manager, or whatever you are, he is not the subject matter expert. It's you, and that's why he employed you. And that's something we need to keep reminding ourselves, especially when we have these slightly dictatorial bosses. The other thing is be humble. So don't slap it in their face. It's not about you, it's about the team. Whatever change you're trying to reach, it's for the team. It's not for you personally. And the most important thing in driving your message home is to be consistent. Talk about it every single day. And at the same time, as you're doing the work, you also need to be consistent with the quality of your work. You need to prove yourself to be reliable.
Absolutely.
So to be an effective influencer and a change maker is definitely not going to come overnight. It takes that persistence. You keep on doing these subtle things from the background, working on people's minds without slapping them around the head. And that consistency. So if you build your relationships, you build your trust, you prove yourself reliable, and then you provide real insights in the way you talk and in the reports you provide, then suddenly you will find that you're influencing people. Like I've had a few aha moments in my life, even when I was in very difficult situations, where suddenly I would find my boss ask me for my opinion. And that's when you're realizing you're starting to influence him. Or there's something where you're very passionate about. Like, for example, I was very much against the use of bribery or buying people meals to influence them to get contracts, which is a very common thing. And I was very proud when one day a director was trying to tell me this person is on the receiving end, and I just looked at him. Because I told them very clear, I do not want to know about any of these things. I do not want anything to do with bribery. Do not ask me to get involved. And I just looked at him that moment. And then his brother said, remember, Stephanie is not very good at these things. And I realized it has started working in their minds. A few months later, we sat in a client presentation. And as the director is doing his part of the presentation, he's openly telling this client, we don't do these kind of things. One of the reasons we don't take government contracts anymore is because there is this bribery involved and we don't want anything to do with it. And I'm sitting there, I almost fell off my chair. And I'm thinking, wow, it has actually worked. So as I said before, if it works for me, it works for anybody else. Here's some more examples. I'll not tell you every one of these stories, but this is an interesting one. We were working as a subcontractor doing the data infrastructure, telephone systems, and the teleconferencing system in a high-end club that was being built. So we were just one of the minor subcontractors. You'd never think you have any chance to influence the design. But because it was so high-end, the finishing was also supposed to be extremely high-end, and the system we were installing was actually meant to be installed on a kind of a shelf. And we had been told we have to provide a bracket. Now, there was no bracket that would fit into the design. We tried to have something locally made, but the finishing was just not good enough. We brought that sample on site, and I'm like, that's not going to work. The designer for this club was actually from Dubai, so she would only fly in once a month. And she was the one who made all the final decisions. The architect that was involved locally was basically like her voice locally, but he couldn't really make decisions. But then I decided to work with him and pulled him aside a week before the designer was coming and told him, listen, we have a problem. We do have a bracket, but it doesn't fit the design of the room. And I don't think that's the end solution. So we went to that place where it was supposed to be mounted. And then he said, you know what, the client actually even wants it to be removable so that it doesn't remain in the room when it's not used to prevent theft. Then he looked at the design, and then I asked him, actually, the way this looks, there was the TV and there was a shelf underneath, but there was still space above. I asked him, could we actually introduce another shelf up there? And he's like, yeah, that is actually a possibility. He said, let me think about it. I'll have a design solution by the time this lady comes next week. So when that designer lady came, it was very simple because the architect was already briefed. When it was my time to speak, I just mentioned the problem. And then the architect spoke up and said, we have come up with this and this solution, showed his drawings and everything, did his magic. And the designer said, yeah, sure, that can work. Let's just go and look at it. Then we went to that position. She said, yeah, it can work. Let's just do it in all the meeting rooms. And just like that, I had changed the design of an entire wall in a meeting room.
Wow.
Because I needed a solution. this change in the company culture I'd already talked about, where I went out and taught them about basics of projects and their particular role in the project. That completely changed the way people interacted with each other, and they stopped thinking in silos. Team building without a budget, that was also interesting. I mean, here I was, the new project manager, thrown into a project that was a very prestigious project, some 5-star hotel. It was a failing project, and we had been blamed for everything. The team was very disgruntled. And here I am, their new project manager, who knows nothing about data infrastructure, and I have to start pulling them together as a team, and I have to learn what data cabling is all about. And I realized I need to learn from them. So I spent quite a bit of time going on site with them and telling them, can you just make me understand what it is you're doing and why you're doing it? So they explained to me the total data infrastructure. They showed me also what the what is it called? The fallback system is and everything. And here I was learning how to do data terminations. I was never any good at it, and I still don't know my color code of the data cables, but it did several things. And afterwards I realized I had actually done team building with them, because we're sitting there in the dust and grime together, sitting on some blocks, learning how to do these things. And then, of course, we went down and had tea together from those big thermoses, and we ate maize and beans for for lunch. They had realized that I'm just one of them. They still respected me as the boss.
Yeah.
But they realized I'm one of them. And it became very, very powerful.
Wow. So yeah, thanks for that. Team building without a budget. I think that's really important. Never heard of it, but yeah, fantastic. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes to wrap up, Stephanie, as we take those questions.
We're about to wrap up. Please reach out to me. You'll see my email at the last slide. I can tell you stories until you get tired of stories. And we can share our own experiences. I know we can all learn from each other. And I think the main message here is whatever you're doing to have your influence and change things so it works better for yourself, is that it will take time. You need to be very subtle about it, never smash in the face, and just say it takes time. Some of the things I implemented took time, took years. Like even the influence of the gating system, that company is still gaining from it, even so I left them over 2 years ago. Never underrate yourself. You actually are an influencer. You just need to start learning to use it. If you play your cards well, you can be a major change maker, no matter your position in the company and in the project hierarchy. You can change things for the better in the position where you are. There's no need to be a victim. Now I have a scenario that would like to really have people's input on, and we will vote on it as well.
Yeah.
This is the scenario. It was a typical story. I've seen that actually similar situations in several companies.
Yeah.
Money
and
is
Stephanie,
never.
Just before you go on to that, so all the participants, please pay attention to this. This is a really nice exercise because we're coming to the end. So Stephanie, take it away, and please make a note as well to all the participants. If you want to write notes, we really get to have a good day in a small session. Stephanie, take it away.
Okay. I mean, in several companies where I was, we were doing client projects, but there was never the money available to buy equipment for the projects. So the situation is, you're a project manager in a company where funds received for your project are often used to fix other holes in the financial budget, instead of buying the equipment for the project. Equipment is bought with cash up front because the vendors have already lost trust in the company.
Yeah.
So you can see the situation. There's no money to buy your equipment, and yet you have deadlines to meet. So you and your fellow project managers and team members are frustrated, and you need to find ways to diplomatically address the situation. How can you influence the way finances are handled? And I've given you several options here. I just want you to remember there is no right or wrong answer. It may actually be situational, and it may go by what is your preferred way of handling it. There's option A, you do nothing. It is the senior management's responsibility to avail the money. Option B, you leave that company because it's not going to change and you're looking for a better employer. Option C, you go to your boss and complain that the money is not there. Option D, you do your best, note the issues and facts, and prepare a lesson learned report that analyzes the issues faced to late procurement, extra cost involved, extra time encountered, and give a suggestion how to improve the situation. Option E, you do a lesson learned, prepare a report, and that's while the project is going on, with several options how to improve, including financing ideas, and present it all to senior management. Okay. So Anil, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share that with you, everybody. Let's see which option do you go for. So you and your fellow project managers are frustrated and need to find ways to diplomatically address the situation regarding no budget, vendors lost trust in the company. How can you influence the way finances are handled? Option one, you do nothing. It's a senior manager responsibility to handle money. Option two, you leave the company and look for a better employer. Option C, you go to the boss and complain the money is not there. Option D, you do your best, know the issues and fact, and prepare a lesson learned report that analyzes the issues faced due to late procurement, extra cost involvement, and extra time encountered. Then give a suggestion on how to improve the situation. Or finally, you do a lesson learned workshop and prepare a report with several options how to improve, including finance ideas, and present to senior manager. So already 42 of you have 45% of you have voted. So 52, 53, everybody seems to be voting quite fast now. 60% of you have voted. So it'd be good to know your decision of that. We've got 150 plus today with us now. And 65% of you have voted. Again, please put your vote in. Your project managers and you are frustrated by the whole thing. How can you influence the way finance are handled? So again, please, so please. Option A, you do nothing. Option B, you leave the company. Option 3, you go to the boss. Option D, you do your best, and then try to sort out the issues. Or finally, you do a lesson learned, report, gain ideas to management. So I'm going to stop voting now and share the result with Stephanie now. So here we go. And already, so Stephanie, option A, 0%. Option B, 1%. So we've got really good project managers in this audience today. Option C, 0%. Option D and E. Option D, we've got 58%. And option E, 41%. What's your view, Stephanie?
I'm very happy to see the results because I think we have had some impact here. I'm sure at the beginning of this, if you would have been given that scenario, we would have had some people choosing option C and others choosing option A. Option A and B is basically just that victim mentality that I talked about, where you feel like there's nothing I can do. I'm just a little cog in the whole system. And to see that most people have chosen D and E is a very good sign. Keep it up. You are change managers. You are influencers. Just keep working on your soft skills and your emotional intelligence.
Wow, thank you for that. So I'm going to stop share and then you can conclude your slide, Stephanie, before I do the conclusion.
So feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much to listening to me. It has been good fun. I'm looking forward to the rest of the questions that are coming. And as I said, send me an email. I may not respond over the weekend, but I will definitely respond.
Okay, so we'll take a few questions quickly. So if you can just stop share, Stephanie, and then we'll take some of the audience questions. There's lots of questions, so I'd love to have them as well. And the first question goes up to, hi, Stephanie, that's from Prabhu. Thank you, Anil, and the team for awesome presentation. Thank you, Stephanie, for bringing out the awareness about emotional intelligence. It would be grateful if you could touch a bit on cultural intelligence. So, according to you, quickly, what is cultural intelligence and why is it important?
It is extremely important, especially in our multicultural settings that we have in Africa, because there are certain things that are not acceptable to some cultures. For example, if you're working in a Muslim culture and you're coming from Europe, you need to know that how to dress, because there are certain things that in the Muslim culture will be seen as offensive. Same if you're working in a very conservative Christian culture. For example, we have their target audience are the simple farmers. And if you join that bank as an employee, you're going to work in the customer facing departments, like at the counter, you will have to go by those requirements, meaning you will have to wear skirts of a certain length, trousers will not be accepted, your blouses will have to have a certain sleeve length, and that's just how it is in their culture. There's no need to be upset about it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then look for another employer. There is also certain things, for example, if you're having a mixed team and you're not aware of the culture, maybe you're having a team party and you think, oh, everybody in Africa likes barbecue and whatever goes with it. It differs in every country. And maybe one of your team member is a strict vegetarian for religious reasons. He will have nothing to eat, because even the vegetables that come with the barbecue may have some meat in it or may have been cooked in a cooking pot that has cooked meat before. So these are the kind of things where you need to be very, very sensitive. Of course, if you're having Muslims, then please don't serve pork, because that is very insulting to them. The other thing is what I mentioned earlier about the holidays. Each religion has its own holidays and they have their hierarchy, which ones are more important and others are not. So you need to come up with compromises, who gets his religious day off when.
Okay. I'll take a few more questions because we will need to wrap up shortly. Sajat from South Africa, Cape Town. Some project managers are really good in taking minutes of meeting, but not so much in taking action. Most of the time, the DT doesn't say anything because they feel that they can't tell him how he's supposed to do his job. The DT means the design team. How to go about this? I.e. to tell a how do you influence a project manager who take minutes?
Okay, to me, taking minutes doesn't make any sense unless you formulate action points. So whether you're the one leading the meeting or you're the one taking the minutes or you're doing both, make sure that all the points that are discussed have real action points attached that are SMART goals. They're measurable, they have a clear end, they have a timeline, they're realistic, and they're achievable.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent session. This is fine. We've got another question from lots of comments. So a very important question, how to deal with a superior who you're in conflict with. So my manager or your superior we've got issues. How do you deal with that, Stephanie?
Okay, my first step is definitely to analyze where's the conflict coming from and be very realistic about it. Is there a real issue or is it more of a clash of personalities? And then you look at yourself first. How can I change my approach to be less conflicting to the other person?
Yeah.
And then the next step is to try and talk with that superior. And you do it in a humble way. Don't ask him, why do you always get upset with me? But do it in a reverse way. For example, if you see he gets upset with your reports, just tell him that you would like to improve the reports and ask him how you would like them.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that you basically come through the back door. And if that doesn't work, then involve some other senior manager on the same level to help resolve the conflict.
okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'll have to take the last question here. And there's a question which is a very, I think it's a common question by all, is, it talk about nepotism, which is very important in the industry currently and everywhere. How do we deal with incompetence and laziness of senior managers who are not on top of the project and are not trustworthy, but have full support of the manager due to nepotism? What's your views on that?
Wow, that's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is to try and gain their trust. And you definitely prove yourself as reliable. You do your work. And if it comes to situations where, for example, that boss doesn't give the right kind of reports, you can ask him, can I prepare the reports for you? You can tell him even, I know you're very, very busy. Can I help you with that?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Stephanie. I'm just gonna share something quickly. Can you see my screen, Stephanie?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll do a quick wrap up. I've got 5 minutes to conclude, and then we will take the word of wisdom from you. So, Stephanie, I think you know Malala Yousafzai. Do you know how you've heard of her?
I've heard the name, yeah.
Right. So you see the picture there.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
she
know who
got
it is.
shot. She got shot when she was young, and this is a post I posted. I picked that this morning, and she started her study at Oxford University, and I was reading the Evening Standard when I was in the UK, and I said remarkable achievement by Malala, Nobel Peace winner, Nobel Peace Prize winner, breathtaking, inspiring. One pen and one book can change the world. And then 3 years after, she's now a graduate from Oxford University, having been shot on the head by the Taliban. So incredible and amazing story. And I want to share that with all the colleagues now who's watching. And this is an amazing video, which I want to share with all of you today, where there's Emma Watson, the Harry Potter girl. Don't know if you recognize her, Stephanie. And also Malala. So I want to just play the video now before we conclude to the audience. So just making sure I've got the sound going as well, and just to make sure that that's fine. Okay. So here we go. Okay, so I wanted to share this video with you, and then before we conclude, I'm reading this book on the influencer, and then it goes on to say, the author, whether you're a CEO, a parent, or merely a person who wants to make a difference, you probably wish you had more influence with the people in your life. But most of us stop trying to make change happen because we believe it is too difficult, if not impossible. We learn to cope rather than learning to influence. And then this is a comment from one of the Nobel Peace winner. Ideas can change the world, but only when coupled with influence. The ability to change heart, mind, and behavior. This book provides a practical approach to lead change and empower us all to make a difference. And then finally on there, he goes on to say, you are a product of your own environment. So choose the environment that will best develop your towards your objective. Analyze your life in terms of the environment. Are the things around you helping you towards success, or are they holding you back? And finally, he goes on to say, which is a really nice quote, with simple tasks such as typing, driving, or playing golf and tennis, we reach our highest level of proficiency after about 50 hours of practice. Then our performance skills become automated. We are able to execute them smoothly and with minimal effort. But further development stop. We assume we have reached our highest performance level and we don't think to learn new and better method. So finally, before I conclude, do you think you are becoming change influencer? So I'm gonna relaunch polling. That's our final question. Do you think after the presentation and what you've seen today, you can become a change maker or influencer? And I'm just going to launch polling now. So we've got 100 of you still with us now. 19% said, no, we are not a change maker or neither an influencer. So love to see your feedback, your comment now. Can you become a change maker? Can you become an influencer? And can we change the world? By also seeing Stephanie's presentation and also all the things we've seen today. So do you think you can become a change maker or influencer? 65 of you have 65% of you have voted. 65%. Please, please, please put your vote in. We've got about 20 seconds left, and I think it's important today. I think we've learned so much from Stephanie today about do you want to become a change maker influencer, and these are important. So 70% of you have already voted, and I'm just gonna 66%, and I'm just gonna end polling now. So I'm gonna share the result with Stephanie. Stephanie, I've been worried now after the presentation now. I don't know, I don't want to share that with you, but I'm going to share it with you. So here we go. I'm going to share the result, and a whopping 99% says yes, we can become a change maker and an influencer. And there's only 1%, there's one people saying maybe that person is hungry because it's lunchtime, but 99% says change maker influencer. And before we get to you, Stephanie, on that, I'm just going to stop sharing, and then we'll ask your final word of wisdom. So let me just finish my slide quickly. So, okay, guys, we know we're still getting the coronavirus. It's around. Keep the nice 2 meters. As Sir Bruce said, do keep the nice 2 meters. And finally, I know there's lots of Liverpool fans watching. If you want to do social distancing, do it as Liverpool. They are, miles ahead in terms of Premier League. But then again, don't forget, Liverpool won the league when Apple and BlackBerry were on the fruits. So welcome to the Liverpool fans after 30 years. And then finally, before we get to Stephanie, I was reading a blog yesterday on construction contract, and I want to share that with you. Let's act in good faith, always, not just during COVID. So this is a blog by Tony Bingham, who is a barrister and arbitrator. And he's talking about the let's act in good faith, where the government guidance on contract urges how to behave responsibly during the pandemic. But why only now? Why the government is saying behave now? So he talks about that. And he goes on to say, as to dispute in particular, the government will strongly encourage parties to seek to resolve any emerging contractual issues responsibility through negotiation, mediation, or fast-track mechanism before these escalate into formal, intractable dispute. It goes on to say, for example, the RICS has developed the low-value dispute model adjudication procedure. Let me say at once that this device is already working well. So if there is any good to come out of this dreadful episode of COVID-19, it may well include this good faith and fair dealing attitude. There's a real possibility of the dispute deciders hereby applying standard of fairness to contracts with an eye to the current emergency, and then the idea of becoming embedded thereafter. Who knows? Let's act in good faith, always, not just in COVID-19. So take care, be safe, and thank you, Stephanie, on the amazing topic on becoming a change maker and influencer. So I'm just going to share with Stephanie. So Stephanie, what's your word of wisdom to all of us? We've got 100 still here after 2 hours and 30 minutes. Quickly, your thoughts, Stephanie, why influencing people and doing change in the world is important based on your experience?
I think it is the most important thing. If we want to live in a better world, if we want to make things better at our place of work, in our society, or anywhere, the only way we can do that is by starting to influence people. And I think I've demonstrated that you can do that. If the little nurse from Germany can influence construction design in Kenya, then anybody can do it.
Wow. And Stephanie, finally, obviously you're a role model. You empower lots of women and men around the world. What's your message to women project managers that often get a hard time in project, especially in an environment where it's male dominated? So what's the message to everybody watching you right now? And the final message to women who are obviously struggling to maybe get the message across, or who want to be aspiring project managers just like yourself?
I think for women, the most important thing is to find the environment that suits your personality. Not everybody is the right person to work on a construction site. I don't work on construction sites anymore because I also didn't enjoy the rough climate there. But I'm not saying all women should run away from there. And then wherever you are, do the best you can and influence people towards a different attitude. But never be confrontational.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Stephanie. Lots of thank you from everyone already. I can see the messages as well. So Jessica, thank you so much, Stephanie and Anil. Deron is enough. So please email me after this presentation. Send me your feedback about the presentation, which I will forward to Stephanie. And also we'll have a recording of that, so I'll share that with you as well. So Stephanie, thank you. We've really enjoyed the presentation today. I think we need to do a part 2, because already people are asking, can we have a part 2 already? And so hopefully we'll do a part 2 eventually with you. I feel you have a lot of story to share with us as well. So I think definitely a part 2 is coming. So massive thank you, truly honored and privileged to have all the participants here today with us, and to have you as well, which I believe was an amazing webinar. So Stephanie, thank you very much indeed, and take care. So Stephanie, a big wave to everybody as we conclude the presentation, and thank you everyone. Let's catch up and we'll share all the messages. Please do send your message on emails and ask me for a certificate attendance as well, which we'll issue to you later. So Stephanie, thank you, a big wave to everybody, and thank you everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Take care. Bye.